Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Michelle Marchant Johnson, and I have with me tonight my lovely and talented guest, and that's my good friend and colleague, Wendy Newman. Welcome, Wendy.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Michelle.
Now, Wendy, I know so many of the women out here have heard you speak and know about you and your book and your work, but we'll read the official blurb, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Wendy Newman is a media-celebrated author and a dating, sex, and relationship expert who's led hundreds of workshops and revolutionized the lives of over 50,000 women internationally. Her book, 121 First Dates, How to Succeed at Online Dating, Fall in Love, and Live Happily Ever After, really, is part juicy tell-all, part anti-rules dating guide, and it's been optioned for a television series and is getting love from the Wall Street Journal, Chicago Tribune, Washington Post, Glamour Self, Huffington Post, Access Hollywood, and more. And from what I understand, Wendy, your book is now in several languages too, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's German and Spanish so far.
Woo-hoo. That's so great. So Wendy is like a celebrity amongst us, and I always tell her, now remember, you got to remember your old friend Michelle here, you know, when you become all super rich and famous. So hopefully you will.
Yes. The key to my success is being willing to talk about how I have stumbled hard in the dating world.
Well, we have that in common because I got a lot of bumps and bruises and skinned knees and broken hearts along my path to love too. So yeah. Our stories are not exactly the same, but we do have that in common for sure. So what we're going to do tonight is Wendy and I are going to talk about some of the things that come up, some of the questions that come up, some of the things that women ask us frequently about, like why men do certain things or why they don't do certain things. And the feedback we're going to be sharing is feedback that we've received from talking to men, engaging with men, learning about men, and what they have shared with us, just so that we can have a little deeper understanding and a better opportunity to have a healthy, happy relationship with them. And this, when we talk about some of these things, there's not an intention here to excuse men for any bad behavior. But sometimes beneath the surface of of a behavior or an action or lack of action that we observe, there's something deeper to be understood or something deeper to go that might be going on. If you seek to understand more about the other person, their point of view, and their way of navigating the world, chances are you have a better chance of having a better relationship and happier, healthier interactions with them. So that's kind of like our overarching purpose, if you will, of having this event, right? So Wendy, let's talk about some of these things. I think I'd like to pick one to start with. And this is a big one. You and I know that this could be one that we could do an entire event on alone, but let's take it right off the top and take it on. It's why do men take things personally when you are disappointed?
Oh, that's such a good one. Well, should I dive right in?
Yeah, dive right in, and then I'll add my 2 bits at the end.
One of the things that comes with masculinity, and before I tell you the thing that comes with masculinity, you might relate to this yourself when you're in your own work sort of CEO mode, because when you're working, you're in your masculine energy too. So one of the biggest things that comes along with masculinity is accountability. You're masculine, you're driving it, you're accountable. You're accountable for the results. So if a woman is upset, off balance, disappointed, thought the date wasn't great, thought the place that he picked wasn't good, he's going to take that personally because he's accountable for having that date turn out. Every time you've ever dressed up to go out on a date, you thought you were meeting as equals at the place. Not in his mind. In his mind, he's accountable for showing you a good time. So they will take things personally because they feel accountable as being in their masculine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is so, so true. Do you have more you want to add to that, or do you want me to jump in for a minute?
Jump in for a minute. I'm trying not to be the talker that I am.
Wendy and I are both talkers, so we have to watch ourselves.
Yes.
So I'm just going to share a teeny little story, which I may have shared in the past, that John Gray shared with me several interviews ago. Not on this interview, but several interviews ago. And that was, he said, if you go out with a group of women, let's just say you go to a Mexican restaurant and the beans are really salty. The women around the table can be commenting to each other saying, ooh, these beans are really salty. I don't know if I want to come here again. I'm not enjoying this as much. It's gone downhill. I'm not enjoying this as much as I used to. And the women are going to kind of like bond over that experience, this shared experience. However, he said, if a man had taken a woman to a restaurant, he'd planned that as a date and taken her there, hoping to provide her with a good experience and a good time. And she's saying, ooh, these beans are salty. Gosh, I don't know. This place kind of seems to have gone downhill. The man is like, John described it. He's like, wait, those are my beans. I cooked those beans. My beans are a failure. She's unhappy. She's disappointed. He's going to take that as though it was his making of the beans. Now that sounds kind of funny. And when I brought up this idea with Mike Goldstein on the Man Panel, this series, I gave the example of, we were talking about how it's important to ask for what you want and make clear requests to men. And I was giving the example of the garbage can. Like if I say to my husband, ooh, this garbage can stinks, my husband can walk by and go, I don't really smell it. Well, what I'm really saying is, will you take out the garbage can? But if I don't ask him that directly, he's not necessarily going to hear it that way. And in fact, Mike even said he might hear it like, what, does the food that I eat stink? Or, what am I doing wrong here? So it's kind of an interesting thing to recognize how sensitive men can be around this and the kind of experience that they want to provide for you. And to remember to look for the positive where you can in your experiences, particularly if they're taking you out or providing you for an experience for you. So if you go to the movie and it's a bomb, look for what was good, even if it's the popcorn tasted great or it was so great to get out of the house after a long week of work or whatever the case may be. Now, Wendy, I want to tee it back to you because I don't want to be the talker that I am, and I want to give you a chance to add anything else you want to add to that.
So much more to add, right? So yeah, one of the things that women don't understand is the power we have in our happiness. And not only are they going to try and be accountable for having a good date turnout or making it a nice, pleasant experience where you're not complaining, but the main goal is our happiness. And we complain, and it doesn't even sound like a complaint to us. Like Michelle was talking about the beans, right? That doesn't sound like a complaint. That's just commentary. It's running commentary. One man I know was hunting a wife, and he'd been on about 200 dates because he was really diligently hunting for his wife and was sorting quickly. And he said, I can't believe it. You need to tell your women, stop complaining. Every single woman I go out with, I'm talking every single one complains about her boss, complains about her day, complains about her best friend, her mother, the beans, whatever, right? And it just drains the life out of them because they get their juice from our excitement. And I'm not saying that we have to fake it. I'm not saying we have to not be authentic and be ourselves. But if you can be paying attention to what's positive, what's happy, and leave the complaining behind, you're going to be in much better shape. You're going to be in better shape for you, not just for him.
Right. And here's another little tip. I put this in a recent YouTube video where I was talking about some of the magic phrases that men love to hear. But wherever possible, you can also, if something does go wrong, and you can see, he's tried, but maybe something goes wrong, and maybe the restaurant isn't very good, or maybe the movie isn't very enjoyable, or whatever. He gets lost on the way, whatever. These are magic words for a man to hear. It's not your fault. if you can let him off the hook and just let him be okay, let him know that you're okay, even if something is not perfect, that goes a long way rather than complaining like you're talking about.
Also, you can appreciate his efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Again, thank you for taking me out to the movies. I had such a long week. It's nice to be in that escape mode. And the popcorn, I love popcorn. I could never get enough popcorn. Thank you so much. I know the movie wasn't what we were hoping for, but I really like being with you. You can do it. You can make positive and appreciate efforts without having to lie. Yeah.
Right. My husband has these computers that he gets, and he likes to stay kind of up to date on technology and get new computers, and always gives me his old computers as my secondary computer for my office. And inevitably, as soon as he gives them to me, they were working perfectly, but inevitably, as soon as he gives them to me, they break. Right? And he feels so bad about it because he's tried to provide something nice for me, a backup computer, and then it just goes south every time. This has happened 3 or 4 times, I kid you not. When I said to him, honey, it's not your fault, and that was so nice of you to give me the computer anyway, then he feels so much better because he knows I'm not like, oh boy, you gave me this dud computer, and he's not feeling that like it's his fault.
Right.
Okay, so Wendy,
before you move on, I just love the garbage can example because I've been swimming in this water for so long. I've been studying men and understanding men since 2002. So to me, on this side of it, it's so funny to hear the garbage smells. Like that's just running commentary. Oh, does it? What is that? Oh, yeah, that's the tuna can from, okay, yeah, that's what that is. Like there's no action going to be taken from that comment, and then we're just pouty that he didn't take out the garbage can, but you never asked. You were just commenting on smell.
Well, and I love that you're putting the accent on that because it brings up another really important point that we've talked about a little bit earlier in the event, and that is when you're asking for something from a man, when you're making a request, first of all, making sure that it sounds like a request, and then ask clearly for what you want. So as an example, if I say to my husband, honey, will you do the dishes for me? Well, he'll do the dishes for me, but in my mind, doing the dishes also includes wiping off the table, making sure the countertops are all cleaned off, making sure there's no crumbs on the floor, etc. If I don't say, honey, will you please wash the dishes and then please wipe the counters, take the garbage out, and sweep up the floors, then he's going to do the dishes. He'll get the dishes into the dishwasher, done, end of story, that's it.
Yep, he might not even turn it on.
You might not even turn it on because I didn't say that. So we have to be clear in our requests, and we have to make sure they sound like requests rather than demands. And we also sometimes have to let go a little bit of the control of like how they do it. Like once early on in our marriage, my husband said, you can ask me or tell me what to do, but you can't also tell me how to do it. Exactly. Okay, so Wendy, let's take another one. Why do men say they will call and then don't call?
Well, it depends. So it's one of our favorite questions. Why didn't he call? We were dating. What happened? Why didn't he call? So if you went on a date or two and he didn't call because he didn't think he owed it to you because he's not in a relationship with you. So it would be really strange to call someone and say, hey, I'm just giving you a call to tell you I'm not going to call you anymore. And if he said, it's the opposite of when he says, hey, can I call you? And you say, sure. And then there's a dodged call, right? But then there are some women who are like, no, you don't understand. You weren't on the date. It was amazing. And by the way, I think he liked me more than I liked him. It wasn't until I got home and I started thinking about it when I realized how much I like him, and he really liked me. So what happened? Why didn't he call? I have the answer. You ready for the answer? He likes you. He was charmed by you. He was swept off his feet by you, just like you thought. And my guess is either one of two things are happening. And honestly, we don't really know what's happening. It could be a million things. He might have gotten back with his ex. We don't know. But likely it's one of two things. One is he was so taken by who you are. He was like, yeah. And then he got home out of your cuteness, side of your cuteness, and he realized, oh, that conversation where we were talking about children, she doesn't want any and I want 6. That's a deal breaker for me. So he might have stumbled over a deal breaker with you, but in your presence couldn't recognize it as a deal breaker because he was such a yes to who you are that it wasn't until he was reconciling conversations at home where he could see that you weren't quite a fit. And it doesn't occur to men to call you because from their point of view, they think you're off living your life, having a great time, that you're happy and not thinking about him. He doesn't realize we're thinking about him every minute until he calls.
And we're looking at our phone.
That some part of our brain, no matter how busy we are is thinking about when is he going to call. That he doesn't realize that multitasking talent that we have that's just waiting for the call and checking for the call while we're doing a million other things. So he thinks, why would I interrupt her perfectly good day, her happy day, to give her bad news that I'm not going to date her anymore when we're not in a relationship anyway, and I'm not going to call her to tell her I'm not going to call her. That's weird. So it's all that. So that could be one thing. He bumped into a deal breaker. The other most likely scenario in these scenarios is that he's not ready for what you're up to. You are a gourmet, delicious, home-cooked meal. And where he is in his life right now is he's available for ice cream, not the whole meal. And he liked you. He thought you were amazing. And he's not at the right spot. Timing is, the third thing. Do you like him? Does he like you? Is the timing right?
Mm-hmm. And in one of these man panel events, one of the men, when we were talking about this, said, yes, if he's really enamored with you and charmed by you and taken by you and the date goes really well and he's giving all these go signals and saying, I'll call you, or he's even maybe talking about future plans or that kind of thing. So in your mind, you're thinking, wow, we've really got something going here. He may have gotten caught up in the moment. And one of the men on the man panel said, sometimes, we don't necessarily mean for this to happen, our mouths write checks that our actions cannot cover, right? So he gets home and like you said, he goes, whoa, wait a sec. Wow, I could see, she's looking for this and I'm looking for that. And I got a little ahead of myself because I was so charmed by her, or she was so beautiful, or so enchanting, and now I gotta pull back a little bit. And also, I just think life keeps on lifing for people. We don't know, like you said, it could be a million things. He could have had a death in the family. He could have lost his job. He could have had, a number of just life circumstances happen that have distracted him or taken him in another direction. And then there's also the whole thing, the rubber band thing that John Gray talks about, where sometimes a man needs to kind of pull back a little bit and kind of think about, where am I going? What direction do I want to go? And is this the person I want to do that with? And sometimes while he's figuring some of that stuff out, he goes quiet. And in his mind, he's not doing anything wrong because there wasn't an agreement. There wasn't typically a relationship. This tends to happen earlier on. Okay, did you want to add any more before we go to the next one?
That's great.
So this one leads really nicely into another one where women, we want closure, right? We want to know the whys. We want closure when a relationship ends or when a man does disappear. We want to know why. And it was brought up in this man panel event, and it's like, one of the men said, do you really want to know why? But let's talk about this one for a minute, Wendy. I'll let you go first.
We want to know why because we think that if we can figure out why, then we can become the thing that we're not, that had him not pick us in the first place. And why is a booby prize. All I got on that one.
Yeah. Why is a booby prize? And also, I talked to my husband about this one day. And he said, you actually have closure when he's gone. He's given you closure. It's just not the closure you want. It's like, it's not that why that we think we can reverse or change or switch to change his mind. We actually already have closure if he's gone. And I read something today that said, if somebody swipes left, don't go after them. Go for somebody that's going to swipe right for you.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of relationship you want. You want someone who's going to be swiping right for you over and over and over again. I'm using an analogy here, obviously.
Well, and that's really important to know. I mean, I would put that at the very top of my criteria of what I need in a partner or the person that I want to be with if I'm dating. I want somebody who's coming at me strong, saying, yes, let's talk about this. Let's get to know each other. Let's, coming at me consistently as a big, fat yes. I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, and luckily that's how it turned out after 121 first dates. Lots of the 121 first dates were not running at me with the big fat yes sign. So, and there were men that I passed on who, they liked me and I liked them, but they didn't show enough attraction and attention. And if we don't have enough connection and attention, we're not going to be able to be our best selves. We're going to be off balance. And I'm just unwilling to partner with someone, one, who can't give me what I need, and two, who's going to have me be off balance. No. So I remember one specific guy, his name was Michael. He's from Oakland. I like to tell you these things. So he was really great. He actually had found my blog. I had a blog before I had my book. So before we ever went on our first date, he had read my dating blog with all the dates in it. And he thought that was so cool. He really liked me. And unfortunately, because he read my blog, he had a sense that he already knew me, that we were already in not a relationship, but that we already had a thing going on, right? Because when you read a book, you have a sense of the author or at least the characters. So he thought that he had a sense of me, and he did. But he forgot to communicate that to me. So when he would disappear for a week or two in between dates, he was just off doing his thing. And finally I said to him, I think that we should just convert this to friends because I'm not going to be able to get the attention I need from you. And he was shocked. And I said, I actually don't think you're that into dating me. And he thought about it and he said, I think you called it. And we became friends. So, yeah. So I would not date someone who wasn't coming at me fairly strongly.
Yeah. It's a really important piece because there's not very many experiences in life that are more miserable than feeling that insecurity or that doubt about whether someone really wants to be with you. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to be in partnership, you want someone who's all in. I mean, there's nothing sexier than somebody really being there all in for you and really seeing you as being that person that they really want to be with. And of course, you feeling the same way back is also important too. But it's just disappointing. And as you described, Wendy, it throws us off balance as women. This is where women get into patterns, unhealthy patterns like overgiving, becoming sexual before they're ready, or trying to change a guy's mind about something, or trying to twist herself into a pretzel of what she thinks he would want him to be. These are the kind of things pursuing. These are some of the kinds of things that women sometimes do in response to feeling off balance. So,
trying to create a more intimate connection, even if it's not sex. Maybe sharing more intimate things that aren't appropriate at that time to try and develop a more intimate connection. There's all kinds of things that will backfire for us.
Yeah. Okay, so here's one that women ask about, and these are kind of two that I'm going to combine together. Why do men not want to talk about their feelings or don't tend to talk about their feelings? And or why do they not talk about where the relationship is going?
Why won't they tell me where this is going? I like that question. My bangs are doing weird things. Sorry, people. So the first question again, why won't they talk about their feelings?
Yeah.
Because I don't think they matter. So for women, our feelings lead us. If you care about me, you're going to care about how I feel. And you can predict what I'm going to do based on how I feel about things. So Michelle, if I said, I've been in the relationship business since 2002, and I'm just not called to do it anymore. Could Michelle see that I was probably moving away from this industry possibly as soon as tomorrow? Sure, based on how I feel, right? Men aren't like that. You think about your grandpa or your father or a man in your life who has done something for years and decades that he's complained about, that he didn't like. And if you ever said to him, well, you should quit doing that. You should quit being the president of the Elks Club. You should quit your job and retire now. My grandfather was a bricklayer in Salt Lake City, Utah, until his 80s. This man was on his 80-year-old knees laying brick part-time. He didn't need to do that. He totally didn't. He could have retired. But he knew that his beautiful wife, my grandmother, had a particular standard. She liked to shop at Nordstrom and Chico's for clothing. And she said, I don't need that anymore. I don't need to do that. I got plenty of clothes. But he knew what he wanted for her. He knew what he wanted to provide and are providers for her. And he didn't care about how he felt about work because he was going to do what was needed. Men not never, I don't like saying never always, sorry about that. But men don't look to their feelings to see if they're going to do something, if they're not going to do something, if they're going to quit their job, if they're going to commit to marriage. They don't look to their feelings. They look at the facts. They look at what's needed. They look at the whole scenario, and then they look at their opinions about things. So facts, opinions, very boring, concrete things. And then they make decisions based on that. And feelings are completely irrelevant. I know a way to get through. Can I share a quick story about this?
Sure.
All right, thanks. So my best friend and I went to the makeup counter because we were in need of new foundation. And when I was there, at the makeup counter, how they always stick the person that you're with like a little bit too far to be chit-chatty with you. So my friend was over here and I was talking one-on-one with the cutie pie 20-year-old who was applying makeup to my face. And while she was applying makeup, because she's in sales, she was asking me a kind of a poll style question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about the dryness of your face? 1, not important, 10 important, right? So I was going with her for a while and I'm like 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. Finally, she said, the size of the pores on your face, how concerned are you from 1 to 10? And I said 1. And she'd had it with me because I was giving her 1s the whole time. And she just looked at me. And I said, I know I have normal sized big pores on my face. I also know you have a product that would probably fix that. But how concerned I am about it is a 1. I'm not going to do anything about it. So it's like that. Why would you care about something that you're not going to do anything about, that you're not going to act on? You're not going to look to your feelings about it if you're never going to act on it. You're going to look at facts instead. That's what a man does.
Well, and I think once a man is in a relationship, for a lot of men, the way they express their feelings or express their love is through action. It's through what they do. It's not through them verbally saying these words all of the time. Although, yes, we as women often long to hear them and enjoy hearing them, and that's something that can be important. A lot of men also know their way of expressing love is through what they do, through action. And so it's not a feeling-based thing. It's like, this is what I do. This is, your grandfather's on his knees in his 80s. This is what I do because this is how I show this woman that I love her.
Yes.
And I also think that for a lot of men, they're socialized and brought up in ways where they're not taught to openly express, outwardly express emotions, feelings, the big boys don't cry kind of idea and that sort of thing, suck it up and everything like that. And so they're taught in many cases to suppress expressing a lot of emotion or a lot of feelings. And so one of the things that's come forward through the MAD panel in talking to all of these men, and I'm sure, Wendy, you've had some of these conversations too, is that when a man feels safe, emotionally safe with a woman, he oftentimes is more able to begin to express some of his feelings, some of his innermost feelings to her in the right kind of situation. But it's not something that most men wear on their sleeves.
Yeah, that's correct. And, I was just having a conversation with Dave the other day, and he said, it's really odd to know how much you know about what I think and how I feel compared to the rest of the world. Because, you just think that I'm open and that I share everything all the time, that I'm emotionally intelligent, because he's very emotionally intelligent, and that, he's very open and shares all the time. And he said, one, it's because you're a safe place to share, right? And he said, secondly, I do it because I know that if I want to feel intimacy and connection with you, that it's important to let you know how I feel and what I think. And mostly, I really don't want anybody else to know. Like, I don't care if the guy, across the hall or wherever knows what I think. In fact, I'd rather he didn't know what I think. That's no one's business. So yeah, that intimacy, when you become the trusted source, you're going to be the space for that, the space for him to reveal himself. But the men who you've met throughout your life, who are men who are in touch with their feelings, how they got that way is because they were trained by women to be in touch with their feelings. Their mother, their ex-wife, an old girlfriend, they were trained to be in touch with their feelings. And I've interviewed a lot of men about this, and all the men have talked about it in the same way, that what they do, that be in touch with the feeling, that's actually, they just access it by thinking, what do I think about that? And sort of go into the system and locate their feelings through what they think.
Mm-hmm.
So a quicker access to get them to talk about their feelings is to ask them, what do you think about that? They're going to be able to get to them quicker.
Yeah, in fact, that's a really good point, and that's something Allison and I talked about in her opening interview, where we talked about conceal versus reveal, and when a man conceals versus when he reveals information. And yes, you're absolutely right, Wendy, to ask for them, if we're asking a question, instead of asking them, how do you feel about this, asking them, what do you think about this, allows them sometimes to kind of go in that opposite direction to maybe get to what they feel when they hear it as a thinking question, because sometimes it has to go through that a little different channel than it might through us, like through the head down into the heart instead of through the heart like it might be for us.
And that's so great that Allison talked about concealing, because my Dave story gave you a very perfect example of men concealing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay, so let's take the second part of this question, which is why they don't talk about where a relationship is going. I love this one too.
It's not a car on a freeway. Men are in the moment and they're looking at the whole thing and they're enjoying what they're enjoying. And they're looking to see, does this add up? Am I going to be able to get everything I need from her without having to change her? We'll jump into a relationship, accept the relationship, and then get to work on what needs to get sorted out, right?
What we need to change.
They don't do that. So that takes men longer to commit, because they have to sort out, can I live with all of her without changing her, including how loud she laughs and the way she dresses and all the things, right? So they don't talk about where it's going because they're in the moment. And we women who tend to be on the relationship escalator that needs to be progressing steadily uphill and with milestones all the way up, where men aren't. They're with you, they like you, they're enjoying you. Why would you change that? What they care about is the substance, not the form that it takes. And so they're not going to be as busy trying to work out the form as you are.
Yeah. Well, this kind of is related in a way to the whole idea of closure. We want definition around a relationship. We want it to be defined. Like, it's like, are we dating? Are we exclusive? Are we engaged? Are we living together? Are we getting married? What is like happening? What is the next step? We want that definition. And one thing that I always tell women when they're, especially in the early stages of a dating relationship, and they're like, oh, I don't know where it's going yet. I don't know what, I don't know what he's thinking, kind of thing, but they're excited about it and think it has possibility, is I say, enjoy this phase, because it never comes again. It's like when you're kind of in that early stage of exploring something, and there's that attraction and there's that mystery, but it's still undefined. That's like such a fun, cool part of dating, because you don't know yet. You don't know. There's that mystery, so to speak. And yet it's like
hotter than that beginning stage.
I know. It's like that, when things are like undefined, that's that really sexy, fun, cool attraction kind of phase where you're kind of going, ooh, this might have potential, and it's so exciting. And like, so my advice is, if at all possible, don't rush through that stage, and don't be so focused on needing definition. This is easier said than done. Don't be so focused on needing that definition about like where we are or what's happening or what the next step is, that you miss out on this really delicious, fun, wonderful early stage part of dating. I mean, this is kind of the stuff that romantic movies are made of, It's like that, in the romantic movies, they usually get together in the 90-minute movie, but, it's that early stage stuff that we like love so much, that attraction and what's going to happen and is it going to work out. And so it's like, enjoy that. Even if you're a little older, even if you feel like you don't have a lot of time, there's something really delicious about that. And it also allows a relationship to develop and to grow naturally without us like pushing or forcing or controlling or manipulating. And it's just a beautiful thing. And my experience has been that relationships can progress really naturally if we're not doing all of those things, if they're the right relationship. Yeah, the right combination of two people.
Absolutely. The other thing is right back where we started with, which is masculinity is accountability. So when we want to push to that next level, where is this going? And what, am I your girlfriend? Am I your fiance? Am I going to be your wife? Each of those things sound like a great upgraded title to us, but to the man, that's accountability. Each one of those things have their own set of accountabilities. So if he's only dating you, the only accountability he has is to produce a good date for you. If he's your boyfriend, now he needs to check up on you during the week between dates to make sure you're in good shape and that you're happy and things are going well and how was your day. More accountability. You're a fiance? Oh, tons of accountability. Now you got to go home to Utah at Christmas time when it's snowing. Right? So, I mean, there's all these extra accountabilities that he needs to look to see. Am I ready to take that on? And if he, let's say he's trying to become partner at his firm and you're pushing for boyfriend, which is going to mean more accountability in his personal life, but he only has 1 or 2 nights to give a weekend. That's it. He doesn't have the space to be checking on you 3, 4, 5 times a week by the phone. Also, on top of the dates, he'll tell you no, and it might not have anything to do with this relationship progressing. It might not be personal. It might be his bandwidth.
Right. Okay, I think we're going to move on now. I love this one, Wendy. This was one you mentioned. Why don't men like smart, successful women? We hear that all the time, right? They're intimidated by me. They don't like me because I'm so smart and successful.
We're not intimidating. And they love how smart and successful and strong we are. And in fact, if you think about it from a survival standpoint, which men are always thinking about things from a survival standpoint, it would make the most sense to partner with somebody who's brilliant and can get you out of bind and live life well, right? So they count on our strength and our smarts, and they are cheerleaders for us to be amazing. And what comes with the smart, successful package can be a real turnoff, and we miss that part. So one of the things that happens is with that self-confidence, we conflate self-confidence with self-reliance. So when we start getting some facility, paying our own rent, buying our groceries, buying our clothes, getting a career upgrade, doing all these things that make us strong and successful and smart, we also start to get the attitude, yeah, I got this. I got it. I got this handled, right? And when we got it handled, we now aren't receiving anything from anybody. Now we're blocking what they want to give us. We're not receptive. We're not open because we got this. It's no, I'm good. I got this. I can pay for lunch. I can pay for your lunch too. I can get my own door. I got this. And let me tell you about the 15 degrees that I have, because I am badass. So now we're going to be competing. Right now, he's trying to impress you. You're trying to attract him, but you flip trying to attract him by impressing him with your accomplishments. And now he's trying to impress you and you're trying to impress him. And you got masculine, 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 masculine to turn off. So you can be as big as you are in the world and not be a turnoff and talk about all your accomplishments and your degrees and all the things if you do it from a place of passion instead of competition. If you talk about why you got into the career you're in by telling an adorable story about when you were 19 and you thought the thing, and right, that passionate story about why, much sexier than I have this degree and I have that degree and I'm going to be in this position next year. All right, good for you. I have nothing to contribute to your life because you got this. So it's I can handle it. I got it all. I'm not receiving. And I'm also going to try and compete with you by impressing you with all my accomplishments. Those are the two areas that are a real turnoff. And we can turn that around without dumbing ourselves down. You know, one of the questions we hear a lot is, do I have to dumb myself down? No. Do I have to make myself small? No. Be as huge as you are and be passionate about it and be open and receptive to what they have to provide. Because if they can't provide, they're out.
Yeah, a man needs to feel like he can make a difference in your life, that he has a place in your life where he can contribute and where he can make a difference and where he can offer something that will be of value to you, where he can feel like he makes him being in your life is something that adds something to what you already have and what you already are. And I think I may have shared this story a couple of years ago, Wendy, on our event, but before my husband and I met, he dated this amazing woman. And she was exactly like what you described. I mean, this woman would send out like holiday letters that would be like, in December, I opened a school for the blind. In January, I ran a marathon. In February, I, added a wing to the library. I mean, it was like that sort of thing. Yeah. Like just reading the letter made me exhausted. I'm like, oh my goodness, who can keep up with this woman? And she really was that accomplished and talented and smart and, degreed up to here. And so my husband had dated her shortly before he and I had dated. And I didn't know her well personally, but I knew enough people that knew her and knew like what she was up to, that I was like, kind of like thinking, wow, I think I'm pretty neat, but I don't know that I'm like all of that.
A lot of competition right there.
Huh?
A lot of competition.
Exactly. So when things started working with my husband and I, when I could feel that things were going in a really nice direction and we were really getting along well and enjoying our time together, one day I said, what's the deal with this woman you dated previously? I mean, she seemed so incredible and so amazing, and I'm just curious what happened and why you're not still dating her. And he said to me, you're right. She is incredible. She is amazing. Probably the most impressive woman I've ever known. He said, but I couldn't see where I really fit in her life. I couldn't really see where I could make any sort of difference. He basically said she didn't need me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she meant to give off that vibe. I suspect she may not have, but that was what he was left with. He didn't really see where he could make a difference or be a part of her life that would be really meaningful and where he would really be acknowledged and appreciated, because she did have that, I got it. And boy, did she have it. She had it. She had the tiger by the tail.
Yeah.
So another thing I want to mention about this, because not everybody listening will consider themselves to be super successful in terms of like a career or in terms of their educational status or that sort of thing. And the good news is you don't have to be all that. You don't have to have all those letters behind your name or all those numbers in your salary or all of these accomplishments in terms of your career. The right kind of man for you is going to see your beauty and magnificence. And no matter where you feel like you're at on the success scale in terms of the world's view of that, the right kind of man is going to appreciate you for appreciating him, for allowing him to make a difference in your life. And he's going to appreciate your beautiful feminine softness, your gifts, your receptivity, and the safe place that you can be for him. And I just wanted to mention that because we do hear this question a lot, am I intimidating because I'm this, that, or the other? But not everybody considers themselves in that category. And I just think it's important to mention that.
Yeah, and there's some really good news for women about that, which is it's us that cares about status more than a man cares about status. He's looking at us for other things. He's not looking at us for, are we killing it in our career? That's a woman thing. So what he will look for is she going to be a total drain and bring nothing to the relationship? He'll look for that. But even if you are currently out of work and you're doing, you're trying your best and you're doing what you're doing and you're in between right now, it doesn't mean that you can't be dating because you don't have anything to offer. You just want to state your case up front and let him know where you've been and what you're up to. In other words, communicating that you're not going to be that drain, that you're not looking to just take. And that's all they care about for the most part.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up too. When my husband and I first met and started dating, we'd only gone out a couple of times. And the company that I worked for at the time, I was working in corporate America at the time, was acquired by a company in the UK. And so suddenly they laid off the entire U.S. Employees, the entire base of the U.S. employees. And it happened right before Christmas, all of a sudden, no warning whatsoever. And so,
Oh, no.
I know. So here I was, I'd only been on a couple dates with my husband, and I loved this career, and I had been doing really well in it. And all of a sudden, this part of my identity was suddenly gone. And I'm in this brand new dating relationship. We've only been on a couple of dates. And I'm thinking, wow, this is kind of a little awkward and a little weird. But my husband could see who I was and who I was. He wasn't my husband at the time, but he could see how I was handling it. And I can remember him saying at one point, he said, it's really good for me to see you in this situation, for me to see how you're handling this and how you're navigating this. And so I let him know that, I was concerned and that it was awkward and that I was a little afraid and I didn't quite know what was come next. But I also he could also see that I was, I was handling it. I was coping and I was moving forward with my life. I was going to figure it out. And it wasn't going to be I was just going to land on his doorstep and say, take me in.
Yeah, and you highlighted really beautifully something that is different between men and women, and that is women are really uncomfortable and or want to hide the problem. That if we're dealing with something that's uncomfortable or embarrassing or could put us in a bad light, we want to hide the problem until we can get it all fixed or eradicated or whatever we need to do so he doesn't have to deal with it. Men are master problem solvers. And they're like, "Ooh, we're going to find out how she solves this problem. This is awesome," right? Or let me see if I can give her a tip to solve this problem. Or if it's between us, let's see how we solve this problem together. That's when the juice happens for them. That's good news. So for the most part, women are often trying to hide a problem. Men are dying to know what the problems are going to be and how we're going to work through them together to see if we can be a good team. And that can be where things fall apart in the dating and mating world. She's trying to hide potential problems and concerns she has. And he's looking at her like, "God, I really want to get to know you and see if this can go somewhere, but I need to know what you need and what the problem might be. And I got to see the whole picture here. See if this all adds up." It'd be a mismatch.
Yeah, that's a good point. Back in that day, of course, I didn't know about authenticity or vulnerability or these wonderful things we talk about now. But in retrospect, I was showing authenticity and vulnerability about that situation. And it did actually allow my husband to be supportive and to cheer me on. And to, he was engaged and interested when I was going on other interviews or what other things I was looking at or what I was doing during the day. And so it actually created, interestingly enough, kind of an opening that may not have actually been there in quite the same way had I been so engaged in that career and that job that I suddenly, out of the blue, didn't have anymore. I want to ask you a question that you and I talked very briefly about before we started, and that's about some of this new work that you've been doing that also relates to men and the kinds of men that are out there, the alpha, the beta, and the independent. I want to see if you can share some insights on this that could be valuable for the ladies before we start to wrap up.
Yeah, thanks. So I get a lot of questions and comments and hopes for understanding what an alpha man is and what, I want an alpha man and I want to know how to attract an alpha man and I want to know all the things about alpha men, right? How do I get an alpha man? I happen to have an alpha man. And so I started doing a little research on a little audio product, right? And it was going to be all about the alpha man. And then I started to really dig in like I do in my research. Someone told me that I'm what do we call it? Pedestrian scientist. No, the pedestrian is the wrong word. Anyway, I'm a person scientist. I'm a people scientist. I'm out there science experimenting things out and questioning and asking men and throwing questions out. And what I found right off the bat was how much I love my beta men. And I said to my very favorite beta man, I said, I really hate that term. I just want to call you a non-alpha, right? Because beta sounds like secondary. You're not chopped liver. What you bring to the table is awesome. And he said, no, we like beta. We're the beta. And I said, okay. So what I want to share with you is a little bit about what I've learned about the alpha man, the beta man, and the independent. And so you can see what one do you really want? Because a lot of women say they want an alpha man. But what they really want is they want that leader, that killing it at the office, that CEO-driven alpha guy at work. And we want him to come home and shift to compliant, empathetic listener who will do everything I say. Mm-hmm. That's a beta man. Mm-hmm. And then we can be really attracted to the independent, the sexy, charming, not available for a relationship, independent man. So it can be a little tricky when we think we know what we want and we're actually looking at three different men entirely. So very briefly, when I'm asked what is an alpha man, and I've done a lot of research with men, both alpha and beta and independent, that what I have found is the number one characteristic is leader. So your alpha is a leader, and if you're in a relationship with an alpha as a leader will bend that relationship to his will. Do you want that? Can you be bent? Are you that accommodating? Can you do it? Where a beta will pick somebody and he will accommodate and adapt to the relationship. So it's almost the opposite. He's going to be, the word that you would use for a beta isn't leader. It's good helper. So if you want a good helper, if you want a collaborator, if you want an equal partnership where you bring a lot to the table and he is there to support you in a way that there's lots of discussion and good dad material and all, that's your beta. That's your beta. And then there's a whole other group of men, which are the independents. And they're not bad men. They're great men. They're charming. They're the life of the party. They aren't interested in relationships. And if they get into relationships, they'll lean really heavy on her to do a lot of the heavy lifting in the relationship. Y'all know that guy, right? You've dated that guy. So that's kind of what I wanted to share about what to look for in the alpha and the beta and the independent. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer those too.
Well, so Wendy, a couple of follow-up questions. I think most women think they want the alpha male, right?
Yes.
And the way you're describing it, maybe not every woman really does want the alpha male. And I always tell women, you have to recognize with every strong quality or characteristic, there's a flip side. And so if you get that guy, that leader, that guy that's out there just making it happen in his career and is just, so accomplished and so successful, there may be a downside to that looks something like he might not have as much time to spend with you as you want him to. He might not be able to take long vacations with you if you want him to. I mean, he might have a very driven personality where he's not able to relax and just be in the moment and laugh and have fun with you in the same way. I mean, there are flip sides to these kinds of qualities, these really strong personality characteristics and qualities. And so it is really something to think about. So most women, though, if you ask them, they're not going to say, I want a beta male, right?
Right. And betas are so great. They're good helpers. They're the collaborators. They're the ones that are going to say, what do you think? And they're going to be full of opinions. They're so opinionated. Sometimes they're even judgy. The flavor can be judgy, but they're so engaging and exciting and enlivening that they want to know, they want to collaborate, they want to help. And one of the things that we tend to think of is an alpha is going to have a high sex drive, but sex drive doesn't have anything to do with alpha or beta. I know plenty of beta guys that have really high sex drives and alpha men who don't. So those two things, they're not connected.
Mm-hmm. And so explain to us the independent one more time. I'm not really super clear on the independent yet.
The independent is the party guy. He's the one who is the lone wolf. He's not really looking for a relationship. He does really great in long distance relationships. Or if he does get into a relationship, he'll probably lean on her pretty hard to do the relationshiping for both of them. So if you're looking for a partner, independent is not partner. Independent is separate from partnership. They're not the same. Now, to make it even more exciting, if an independent meets somebody that completely rocks his world in an entirely different way, he will shift from independent. Not all of them do, but he will shift from independent and he will become beta or alpha based on his personality. But that's more of I wouldn't put my paycheck on that. Yeah. If I were dating, I wouldn't roll the dice on that one.
So what are a couple of things we look for besides the obvious, maybe you can tell he's really super driven or really super into his career or whatever, but what are a couple of other things we might look for?
How much accountability? So accountability is a big one. My beta was telling me that the beta that I talk to all the time, he's a dad. So that's another thing. beta and alpha, they can be a little bit fluid. The alpha, he might be an alpha, but if he's in the room with the president of the United States and 10 of the most important men on the planet, is he still the alpha in the room? Well, yes and no. He's still an alpha, but he's not the alpha in the room, right? Who's the smartest guy in the room? Who has the most status, right? So alpha can be a little bit fluid. Beta can be fluid. My friend who is my favorite beta, he's a dad to his 6-year-old. There's no question who's the alpha. I mean, the difference is the alpha as a leader will say, okay, team, this is what we're doing. We're going to do this. I'll take a little bit of feedback, but mostly I got this. We're doing this. Here's the plan. This is now the 15-minute window to give me input. Then that window is closed. This is what we're doing. Where a beta, even in an alpha role like dad, will come to it from a more collaborative place than a director place, right? Mm-hmm. That leader's going to direct the show, where my beta will talk to his little girl, and instead of telling her how it's going to go, he'll say, well, let's talk about it. Let's collaborate on it. What do you think? And he might adapt the plan based on what will make her happy. Oh my God, maybe you want to date a guy who will change a plan to make you happy. Wouldn't that be great? That's often a beta man. Now, mm-hmm. Alpha men will do that too if they also have the flavor of benevolent, but not all alphas are benevolent.
Right.
So many different flavors of alpha, beta.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's kind of fun stuff to think about and to explore. And I think a really key part of this is to remember that with every quality or characteristic that is really pronounced in a man that you think you want, you have to also consider what the flip side of that might be. I just think that's really important to keep in mind, because when you're with a man, he is as he is. You don't get to change him or try to turn him into something else. That's a recipe for unhappiness and disaster. And I really want to thank Wendy for being here with us. She's always so generous with her knowledge, and she's a fountain of wisdom.
It's always a real pleasure to play with you, and to be with somebody at such a high caliber doing this work is always a treat. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate that compliment. And Wendy and I are going to sign off for now, and we're so grateful that you joined us.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.